Hello and welcome into another episode of Half Court Press. He's Wilson Moore. I'm John Walker, and we're going to talk some ball for about a half hour or so.
We are.
It's been an eventful week for both Creighton and Nebraska. For no longer after Thursday night, two entirely different reasons.
Yes.
Because for the first time in, I don't even know, probably for the first time in 2025, they've both had something to celebrate at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah.
So we'll talk about all of that in the minutes to come. But before we dive into it, Wilson, how the heck are you, man?
You know, I'm a little tired, and
Okay.
I think
sleepy.
A little sleepy. I think
Okay.
anyone listening to this podcast would know why I had a bit of a late night last night. So,
no way.
Yeah.
Party animal.
Yeah, that's right. That's definitely
Party
nothing.
Bank Arena.
No.
I'm sorry.
Hey, when that's what it becomes when they beat a ranked team in overtime there. But yeah. Definitely had nothing to do with the events at Pinnacle Bank Arena that I was out late last night.
It was a big night for Nebraska. They snap a 6-game losing skid with a win over Illinois. Creighton is coming off a win over Xavier. We'll break down both of those momentarily, but they both had games before that. We'll probably spend a little bit more time talking about Nebraska here because let's just start here. Creighton wiped the floor with Seton Hall after the first few minutes.
As they were supposed to, right?
Yeah. And it was a little shaky at first because Seton Hall was hanging. And Greg McDermott knew before that game that there was a chance that happened. Seton Hall's defense causes a lot of chaos. They gamble a lot. They kind of have to with where they're at in the season, and they would anyways under Shaheen Holloway because that's just kind of the brand of defense they play. But Seton Hall, without their leading scorer that game, Isaiah Coleman, got Dylan Adewusu back. But they were also without another player. I can't remember who off the top of my head. But they were without two of their top three players, including their leading scorer. And it was like, okay, this already struggling Seton Hall team, down two of its best three players, is probably not going to be able to hang. And over the course of 40 minutes, that's what happened. So Creighton won by 25, back-to-back 20-point wins over inarguably the two worst teams in the Big East at DePaul, and then Seton Hall in the pink out, which we talked about last week, obviously. And then they beat Xavier. I'll save that, though, because you were in Madison.
I was.
Over the weekend.
It's a great town.
Took a nice little road trip to see Nebraska lose its sixth straight at Wisconsin. Tell me about the game, and then tell me about Madison, because I've only passed through on my way to Marquette.
We'll start with the game.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one of the low points in Nebraska's 6-game losing streak that I'm sure for Nebraska fans listening to this, it's easier to talk about it now that it's over. I mean, look, Wisconsin is really good. I think this Wisconsin team is better than last year.
I'd say so.
I mean, last year, when they played at Wisconsin last year, January 2024, I left that building. I left the Kohl Center thinking this is the best team in the Big Ten outside of Purdue regarding Wisconsin.
Right.
And I think they were at the time. They fell off a cliff. We'll see. That's been kind of the thing under Greg Gard. They have not finished seasons well, but Wisconsin is really good. John Tonje, Omaha Central
Shout
grad.
out.
He is a dude. John Blackwell has taken a gigantic leap forward, and just for the second year in a row, I was really struck by Wisconsin's just ball movement and shot making, and just it flowed. It was smooth. They pushed the pace, which a lot of Wisconsin teams don't do, and they just kind of took it to Nebraska. They jumped out to a 19-3 lead. Nebraska fought back, got within 3, and then Wisconsin just took control. It was, man, it feels like a really long time ago. It was 5 days ago. But yeah, Wisconsin is a really talented team. I think you can make a case, not to get too deep into this. Look, I think if you're looking at the Big Ten, I think the top three, like if you, in like that first tier, is Purdue, Michigan State, and is it still Illinois? This theory's like a week old. A fully healthy Illinois with Tomislav Ivic.
I view Illinois in the same light that I view St. John's. Yeah. Very talented, very naturally gifted teams with a lot of just good basketball players. Yeah. The Achilles heel of both of those teams are their 3-point shooting. Yeah. That's kind of gonna carry. Yeah. That's gonna make the difference for St. John's through the rest of the regular season. Yeah. As we saw against Nebraska, it's going to make a world of a difference for Illinois.
But anyway, I think Wisconsin is like at the very top of that second tier. With like Oregon and probably now Illinois. They've probably dropped out of that first tier for now. I'd say so. But anyway, I think my point is, that was a very long way of saying I think Wisconsin's a really talented team. Nebraska was not at its best.
No.
They didn't get their best from pretty much anyone. I think Raleigh Wooster was the only guy with a positive plus-minus.
Yeah.
Just not a good day in a difficult environment. One thing I was a little surprised, Connor Essegian was pretty mercilessly booed, which I didn't really see coming.
Okay.
He was kind of a fan favorite in Wisconsin, and the thing is,
he plays that role.
Yeah,
has in Nebraska too.
Yeah, he's a charismatic guy, and he's big on like social media and connecting with people, and it's so I was, and because usually the guys that get booed are the guys who like AJ Storr.
Yeah,
like if Kansas were to play at Wisconsin, that it would be bad.
He's getting booed.
Yeah, well, like Essegian was out of the rotation and transferred for a better opportunity. Usually those guys don't take quite as much heat. No. I was a little surprised by that.
No, I had Nebraska's Ken Pom page pulled up, and so I just clicked on Wisconsin's too. Their only losses this year: Michigan, at Marquette, at Illinois, at UCLA, at Maryland.
Yeah.
All of their losses are to teams in top 30 in Ken Pom.
Yeah. They're really good.
That's a good record to have. Sure, you'd love to win some of those games. Those are good losses on your resume.
Yeah.
So, no, it was Nebraska hung for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once that building got going and once Wisconsin got going, it just never stopped.
Yeah, it felt like Nebraska was just kind of a beat slow on Wisconsin's ball movement.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Let's flip to this week, because both teams turned the calendar because Creighton actually played someone.
Yeah.
And they beat Xavier 86-77 on Wednesday night. I did not cover the game.
Really?
Shout out Gene Schinzel.
Oh.
I went anyways, but I was putting the finishing touches on a long story that I filed earlier that day. We'll talk
little teaser.
Little teaser. I'll talk more about it next week, but a little teaser that'll be out in not this weekend, but the next week, maybe Sunday edition of the World-Herald. So.
Nice.
Be on the lookout for that, I guess. But I was in the building anyway, and I thought it was so interesting. I think I talked about this last week. Creighton, 5-6 weeks ago, was the team that was on the bubble and desperately needed to beat the upper echelon teams in the Big East. At the time, Marquette, St. John's, UConn. Now Creighton's kind of slid into that third spot in the tier with UConn or with St. John's and Marquette. Xavier, after playing in arguably the hardest schedule in the Big East to start league play, they now, one, are almost out of, and two, need big wins.
Yeah.
They've played UConn twice, they've played Marquette twice, they've played St. John's twice.
That is brutal in the first
month of league play.
That's insane.
So they're out of those opportunities now. Creighton on Wednesday night would have been a really, really, really big resume win for them. a road win in Omaha against a team that's now pushing, for the top spot in the Big East. That would have been a huge win for Xavier. And Creighton, despite Stephen Ashworth not playing well, despite Jemiah Neal kind of taking a little bit to get going, was able to weather the storm that was Xavier. Really just Ryan Conwell and Zach Fremantle. They just pulled away, man. Like it was one of those things where Creighton, although it probably had less to lose, all things considered, it played like the hungrier team. Yeah. And that is what you needed to see from the Jays after 2 blowout wins on their home floor against the bubble.
Don't want to lose that edge.
A win-hungry bubble team, and Creighton was hungrier. Stephen Ashworth was 3 for 11 that game, had 7 turnovers. Ryan Kalkbrenner had 29 and 9. That's the big point, obviously. Xavier does not have a Ryan Kalkbrenner, and as Wednesday showed, does not have an answer for Ryan Kalkbrenner, more importantly for Creighton. Then Jemiah Neal got going. Fedor Zugic chipped in a huge 3 that turned it into a 2-possession game midway through the second half. And then Isaac Trout got on another heater. He finished 5 of 7, 2 of 4 from 3. Had a couple of dunks. That game was weird.
Yeah.
For quite a few reasons.
It kind of feels like, and we've talked about this kind of thing since Pop Isaacs got hurt.
Yeah.
Like, Creighton has needed someone to step up.
Yeah.
And it's been Isaac Trout.
It's been Isaac Trout. Let's see. I just tweeted after that game. Here's Isaac Trout. He scored. Here's Isaac Trout's last 5 games. He scored double figures in 4 of those. Creighton needed a guy like that to come off the bench. So he's averaging 10 points a game. He is 16 of 22 from the field, 10 of 16 from deep. That'll play.
Yeah.
That will certainly play. And they've all been timely buckets. That was the case for Isaac Trout over the last 5 games. That was the case for Creighton against Xavier. They went 8 for 10 from 3 in the second half after going 3 of 15 in the first. And 4 of those 8 in the second half turned a 1-possession game into a 2-possession game.
Yeah.
That is huge. So not only were they hitting them, they were hitting them when they needed to. And in return, they were able to keep a win-hungry bubble team at arm's length for 40 minutes, really. So Creighton has now won 6 straight and 8 of 9 since that road loss at Georgetown to open Big East play, which feels like an eternity and an entirely different team ago.
Yeah.
Because Creighton has not been the same since. Georgetown has not been the same since. The Big East has not been the same since, really. And now we'll talk about this a little bit later. Now the Jays are in a position where they can realistically sit back and say, here is our path to a Big East championship. Insane. Nebraska, not quite on that level yet.
Not quite.
Not pushing for a Big Ten championship. No. I think a historic end to the season would have to happen for them to do that. And they'd have to get a lot of help along the way. But the losing streak is over. The Wicked Witch is dead.
It is.
Because the Huskers hang on, bless you.
Thank you.
In overtime, led to your late demise, your late night at PBA, and beat Illinois 80-74 on Thursday night.
Yeah. It's funny because this game had so many.
Was that a statement? Was that a question?
This is a statement I'm making right now.
Brad Underwood is heated.
He was on one after the game. Yeah. Like we said out there, there have been 2 just incredible performances from visiting team head coaches in the PBA media room this year between Underwood and Mick Cronin. It is the place where coaches get their feelings out and are unapologetic in their manners of doing so.
Yeah.
But anyway, Yeah, it's funny because it felt like it had so many of like. In some ways, it felt like a lot of the games they lost in that 6-game losing streak, and in other ways, it felt nothing like it. Nebraska, I thought, competed a lot better than it has probably at any point in that 6-game winning streak. I mean,
it felt like they knew. That I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way.
Yeah.
But if they lost that one last night, and you're sitting at what 2-8 in Big Ten play, you're done.
Yeah,
essentially.
And what we can get to what we were talking about of their potential path to March, but just last night they competed, and like Illinois got a lot of offensive rebounds, but Illinois is the best offensive rebounding team in the country, and like Nebraska got some big contested rebounds. Jawan Gary grabs, like, he got up there for some boards like in the second half and overtime. Some of the offensive boards Illinois got were those, like, 4 sets of hands go at it and it gets tipped up 5 times. Nebraska had 2 huge offensive rebounds in the last minute. Gary and Andrew Morgan each had putbacks that in an overtime game they lose without.
Absolutely.
But also Nebraska led the entire game. Illinois did not lead for a second, and it kind of felt like when it's the last 4 minutes and Kasparis Yakachonis hits a 3 to bring them within 1, and then they tie it up, it kind of feels like, is Nebraska going to fumble this away again? And they did.
Your guy, by the way,
Kasparis, he's awesome. He's fun to watch, as fun to watch in person as he is on TV.
Good to know.
Yeah. But they sat down. They got a stop on that last possession. It forced Will Riley into a tough corner 3, and then overtime hit. And just little background here: Bryce Williams struggled from the field for a lot of the game.
Absolutely.
He struggled at the rim. He missed some threes. And I was saying throughout the game, like to Amy just sitting next to me, I was like, I don't think they can win with Bryce playing like this. Like, I don't think you can beat the number 18 team in the country with your best player missing the shots that he has. No. And then that all led to overtime, and Bryce realized he was the best player on the floor, and he played like it, and he played like the guy Nebraska is going to need him to be for the rest of the season. 3 of 4 shooting, 8 points in overtime. He outscored Illinois by himself in those 5 minutes. Like, he did not allow Nebraska to lose that game. Brad Underwood said after the game they had the best player on the floor, and it wasn't close. Yeah, so, his final line, I know you're looking at it, 10 for 26.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, there's a glitch in KenPom.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, 10 for 26, that is not efficient, but in a game like that, a rock fight, and like someone responded to like a tweet of mine. They were like, he was 10 for 26. I'm like, he outscored Illinois by himself in overtime, and that was the important
That has to
part.
Be a career high shot attempts, right? You would think.
Yeah, I would think so.
He had 24 while he was at Charlotte in a double overtime loss to UAB. He had 24. Yeah. But he was also 4-10 from 3 that game.
Yeah.
So little different.
Yeah. But yeah, Bryce Williams was Nebraska's MVP in overtime. They don't win
easily.
They don't win that game without him, and like that's who they need him to be for the rest of the season.
Was there any? We talked about it last week that last year's Nebraska team was so good at winning those final 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, they would just make it a rock fight, a mud fight.
Yeah.
To,
as we like to say on this show,
to get through or to get to those final 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, let's just play ball. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
We just have to be better for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But through the losing streak, it was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I think I said last week they couldn't finish a drink.
Yeah.
Like, if you handed them a glass of water, they're going to spill it one way or the other. And that's not what they did against Illinois. Was there anything different?
I don't know, because like they had like a 4-point lead with 4 minutes left, and they weren't really able to finish. So that's what I say, where like it in some ways it felt similar, and in some ways it felt different, because like they still, I had a chance to win it in regulation, and Illinois hit some shots. To Illinois' credit, they hit some tough shots
when they had them all game.
Yeah. And But I think the biggest difference was going into overtime. I was thinking this felt a lot like the Iowa game, not in the sense that Nebraska blew a huge lead like they did against Iowa, but Nebraska looked kind of gassed by the end of regulation. And, Illinois was the bigger, stronger, more physical team, and I thought Illinois was going to take control in overtime, and Bryce Williams didn't let that happen. They got some stops. Jawan Gary made some plays. Like Jawan, he was a dog last night.
For sure.
He was a dog for sure last night. Nebraska's best players made plays, and that hasn't always been the case. They haven't always hit that shot. Bryce gets to his spot in the mid-range in overtime and knocks down a shot. Like that's the kind of shot that not necessarily him, but just Nebraska didn't get.
Right.
That kind of momentum building. They're up by 4 and he hits it to go up 6, and that kind of seals the game with a minute and a half left. Like that.
Yeah. Those were, again, the shots they did get to fall last year.
Yeah.
Not the shots they've gotten to fall this year.